Hello hunters, I'm Azortharion and welcome to yet another video. In this one we're going over some recent changes to the class tree that I didn't get in my video recently, and also some brand new changes to Marksmanship that have just landed. I also want to go over some feedback that the Marksmanship hunter community has gathered that we can all take a look at and sort of can maybe inform your own feedback. And I also want to have a look at the updated bugs spreadsheet, because the latest beta build fixed quite a few bugs, especially with pack leader for BM and some other stuff. Alright, so before that, let me just take a moment to thank my very first sponsor on this channel, NordVPN. Whether you're browsing at home or on the go, NordVPN has got you covered with top-notch security and lightning-fast speed. It's perfect for accessing geo-blocked content like TV shows that are not available in your country on websites and streaming services. Plus, with servers in over 60 countries, you can easily access content from anywhere in the world. Now, here's something especially exciting. By going to my link on nordvpn.com/Azor, that's AZOR, linked in the description, you can snag an exclusive NordVPN deal. Not only will you get their 2-year plan at a fantastic discount, but you'll also get 4 months absolutely free. NordVPN is also throwing in up to 20 GB Saily data voucher. Saily is an eSIM card that gives you international data, making it super convenient for checking out all the sick hunter knowledge in my Discord, no matter where you are. It's totally risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you've been thinking about ramping up your online security and flexibility, now's the perfect time to do it. This exclusive deal is only available through creator links like my own. So, I highly suggest you head over to nordvpn.com/Azor right now to get started. Again, that's nordvpn.com/Azor or AZOR. Stay safe, stay secure, and let's get back to the video. Alright, welcome back, and let's get into it. So starting out, new talent, Blackrock Munitions, the damage of explosive shot is increased by 8%. So this is basically, this is a side effect of a reshuffle they've done with some other talents here, so it's easy to see here. So Blackrock Munitions just exists right below explosive shot now, whereas this used to be a steel trap, high explosive trap choice node. New talent, Implosive Trap. So this is the most exciting part of this video, perhaps. Hurls a fire trap to the target location that explodes when an enemy approaches, causing a bit of fire damage and knocking all enemies up. Limit 1, meaning limit of 1 trap, not 1 target. Choice node with high explosive trap. So basically, Hunter now has an AoE stop on top of bursting shot, so it has a proper ranged AoE stop in Implosive Trap. So this is basically what a lot of us have been wanting for a seriously long time. It is a huge boost to our general utility in Mythic Plus, and of course the War Within also brings significant survivability benefits to Hunter going into the War Within. So another huge plus for Marksmanship, not just Marksmanship, just Hunter going into Mythic Plus, especially in the War Within. So okay, well, let's think about it a bit more. So there are some bugs with this on a beta, so but I'm assuming those will be fixed as always. The only downside of this compared to some other AoE stops would be that it's a trap, right? So traps have a few disadvantages that are just inherent to how all traps work. The main one is they have a variable target time or travel time. So if you're really far away and you throw a trap, it's going to take much longer to arrive. And they also have an arm time from when they land that is about a second. I don't know the exact number down to the millisecond, but it takes a little bit of time after the trap lands before it is armed. So because of this, and because you're not always going to be the same distance from the mobs that you're trying to AoE stun, you'll sort of have to try and take that into account, the potential travel time and how the travel time changes when you're trying to time your AoE stop based on certain casts. Survival has a little bit of an inherent advantage here in using Implosive Trap, because of course Survival is a melee spec, and the travel time of the trap is going to be, on average, much shorter than it would be for BM and MM. But of course, BM and MM can just play near melee and make the Implosive Trap generally much easier to use. I would still prefer if they... So, I mean, I guess this is maybe the choosing beggars or something. It would still be nice if, especially the variable travel time of traps is something I don't like. The arm time we can sort of live with. But the idea that you might miss an AoE stop because you're playing like hunters kind of should, especially, let's say you're a Marksmanship hunter. Your mastery lets you be able to attack from farther away. Often you'll be taking advantage of this extended range. But when you're trying to do AoE stops, which you will want to do even as a marksmanship hunter, you're at a significant disadvantage because you're going to be throwing this trap from like 45 yards away. It's going to take like a couple seconds at least to arrive and then arm. This is not very flexible for like trying to time AoE stops. Of course, you can just hop into melee, but that's an extra potentially 40 yards of movement in combat that you would not otherwise have done, particularly as marksmanship, which is much more movement limited than Beastmastery is. So it's not perfect, but it is certainly a huge bonus. I still think like the clunkiness of traps could be sorted here. I don't think it has to be, let's say, instant. There are other instant AoE stops in the game, like thinking of like Dragon's Breath, but if you think about it, most AoE stops are actually like melee or like extended melee range. So like AoE stops that can be used from 40 yards away are relatively rare. The price we pay for that is the extended travel time. Is that a fair price to pay? I don't necessarily think so at all times, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next up is Territorial Instincts has been redesigned. So Territorial Instincts is basically the talent D here that makes Intimidation castable without a pet. But the redesign says, and this is what it says, casting Intimidation without an active pet summons one from your stable. Now, this is not as bad as it initially sounds. So what you might think this does is that basically it'll summon a pet for you. It's like a built-in summon of your pet when you cast Intimidation. But that is not actually how it works. How it works in-game is that essentially this is a reflavoring of the ability and not so much a redesign. What happens is you press Intimidation, a pet spawns, stuns the target, and then disappears. If you don't have one summoned already, of course. So no cause for alarm. When I first read this, I was kind of sad because obviously in my very first marksmanship tree video, or class tree video, I should say, I was kind of concerned that they would make this into a situation for marksmanship where you would use your stun, and then once the pack was over, and of course the moment you use the stun, like bam, that's like 10% of your damage wiped out. And then after the pack, you would have to dismiss your pet and then wait for Lone Wolf to stack again. That would really suck, but that is thankfully not how it works. So overall, this is just a good reflavoring. No problems there. Some talent notes in Gate 2 have been repositioned. Nothing, super important. The main things in terms of how things have moved around has been this choice node moving from up here to down here. Concussive Shot and Wilderness Medicine now connect to Scare Beast and Scout's Instinct respectively. So that once again just relates to these nodes here, like kind of the utility nodes. Not really a big deal in my opinion. The following talents have been removed. So this is probably the second big news. So Steel Trap is gone. Everybody liked that. I don't think anyone is going to miss Steel Trap all that much. And we've been basically saying nobody likes Steel Trap. Why don't you just remove it for a while? That's exactly what they've done. However, Death Chakram. Before I comment, let's just read the developer's note on it. So, one of the biggest complaints we're seeing in the hunter community is button bloat. Death Chakram was a relatively high frequency button, so 45-second cooldown, right? That you had to click before all of your damage abilities. I hope you didn't click it. No clickers. I mean, if you click, you're allowed in this channel, but you should keep behind your stuff. Anyway. Creating something of a launch sequence for every hunter specialization. That is true. Before, like mid-opener, or a big part of your opener was basically front-loading your Death Chakram, making sure that it affected all of your hard-hitting abilities that came after it. The problem with this was, Death Chakram also generated quite a bit of focus, but when you're sort of starting a fight or starting your launch sequence, as they call it, in the beginning of the opener, you're already at the focus cap. So it just felt kind of bad to press this focus generating button early in the opener because the damage increase that it offered other abilities making that optimal. So yeah. Its removal will let us bake the lost power into each spec's kit while also reducing the button presses required before you can begin damage. Now, this has been surprisingly controversial of a change from what I've read in the Hunter Discord and in your comments in my last video. I'm personally of the opinion that I don't miss Death Chakram. The reason I disliked Death Chakram is, so obviously it was relatively powerful. It was basically like a strong button to press. It generated some focus, which was useful for some specs more than others. Like BM and MM, Survival especially liked it. Probably not so much the new Survival. MM was okay with it. BM didn't really care for it at all. And then of course buffed your other damage. But like it was just a flat 10% damage increase to your other stuff. You didn't really feel it. and it was a 45-second cooldown, which means it didn't really line up with anything else naturally, and it didn't really enhance the bursty profile of the Hunter specs in any particular way outside of the opener. So to me, it was just kind of a boring and uninspired button. It was powerful, but I'd much rather have the power that it provided baked into the kit of each spec, which is what they say they're going to do. So overall, I like the removal of their Chakram, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, that covers the changes from last week, but there were actually a few more changes yesterday. All of these changes we've covered in the previous videos, so be sure to check those out. But now I'm just going to have a little bit of a scroll down to the changes that happened very recently. Let me see if I can find them, all right. All right. So Implosive Trap's cooldown reduced to 60 seconds, was 90 seconds. So this is our Neo AoE stop. Basically, it's going to have a 60-second cooldown baseline. However, thanks to the improved Traps talent, it can be reduced by another 5 seconds. So I don't think it actually... No, it does say it here, Implosive Trap. So essentially, our AoE stop, our Implosive Trap, is going to have a 55-second cooldown if we spec into improved traps, which we're probably going to want to do for Mythic Plus purposes and so on. Next up is Marksmanship specific, and now we're just venturing away from the class tree changes and into the Marksmanship specific stuff. So Steady Shot cast time reduced to 1.65 seconds, was 1.75. So it's no secret that Steady Shot has felt like a pretty lame button to press for a long time. It deals very close to no damage, it takes a long time to cast, and if you wanted to generate focus, you had to invest a talent point into doing so, which we mostly do. Not so much because we find it all that sexy, but because the alternatives up here are not necessarily so great. Although I think there are some builds that drop it at this point. It's hard to, I mean, obviously this will speed up the spec very slightly, but the thing is, Marksmanship on the beta right now is not casting a tremendous amount of steady shots to begin with. I'd be curious about their rationale for this change. I mean, I will always take a faster cast time. Like, I'll always prefer a faster spec over a slower one, but that's my bias. But it's such a subtle thing, and it seems so kind of random and arbitrary. So I'm wondering what they think about this, and like if they'll sort of back it up in the future. All right. Next up is some Marksmanship changes here. So Arcane Shot damage increased by 10%. Aim Shot damage increased by 10%. Rapid Fire damage increased by 10%. Trick Shot's effectiveness reduced to 65%. So we have to basically consider these changes all together. What they're doing here is essentially they're nerfing Marksmanship's AoE a bit in order to improve its single target. Or rather, they're keeping its AoE roughly the same while increasing its single target damage. Marksmanship's single target has been pretty poor for a long time now. Its niche has always been really powerful AoE damage, especially burst. This won't take anything away from that, but basically the way... Because most of Marksmanship's AoE damage comes from the same abilities that you use on single target, but of course they're using trick shots. So the way that you buff Marksmanship's single target without making its AoE even more overpowered is you nerf the trick shots percentage and you buff the other abilities. So I think this is fine. I mean, I'll take a buff, right? And especially for single target, you know, Marksmanship certainly needed it. Another change here is Penetrating Shots critical strike damage bonus increased to 40% of your critical strike chance, was 20%. This is just an overall universal hunter, like Marksmanship 100 damage buff that will very much take. It increases the value of crit chance even further. We already have so many mechanics that buff the value of crit. So yeah, just overall like numerically inclined buffs for Marksmanship here, and I think valuable ones as well. Next up is a little bit of survival. This is actually stuff I talked about in the last video, so be sure to check out that video. I'll link it in the description below. You can find it in the video before this one on my YouTube. Mongoose Fury reverted to previous functionality. So I talked about all in this video and how this was going to happen. This is just them like formalizing it and actually doing it. Same with all of these flanking strike changes. We already knew this was going to happen as of the last video, and this is just them implementing it. One new thing that was not in the, like they haven't announced that they were going to do, is Bloody Claws has been updated. So Bloody Claws is one of the rather high up talents in the survival tree. It's right here. Each stack of Mongoose Fury increases the chance for kill command to reset by 2%. So that was always its functionality. But now it also extends the duration of Mongoose Fury by 1.5 seconds. So this is actually a fairly elegant change that I broadly like. So the problem that Blizzard had with the previous, which is now the current, the Mongoose Fury that you know and possibly love, is that it didn't really gel very well with the tip of the spear gameplay that characterizes survival in the War Within. Obviously, tip of the spear is we cast kill commands, we get a buff that stacks, and it buffs our other abilities, so we always want to sort of weave kill commands between other abilities. Well, Mongoose Bites and Mongoose Fury by extension, like that sort of rewarded spamming Mongoose Bites at certain points. In practice, this is not really how the gameplay turned out, but that is sort of perhaps the design intention behind it, even if it doesn't actually work out that way in practice. Well, those two things, like having to weave in kill commands between everything versus spamming Mongoose Bite, those are sort of mutually exclusive gameplay loops. By baking in an extension of Mongoose Fury into kill commands, you're basically sort of reducing the clunkiness of that collision of mechanics a little bit. And I think it's an elegant, maybe not a solution, but certainly a band-aid to the problem they were experiencing and survival hunters are arguably experiencing on the beta. So overall, a good change. So yeah, that pretty much covers it for the marksmanship and class 3 changes. Next, I wanted to hop into this fantastic straw poll that was made by Krisem of the marksmanship community on the Discord. And it's basically, he just posted, a lot of feedback that people have about marksmanship is obviously the same. And he basically took it upon himself to create this poll, post it in the Discord, and he just gathered, the marksmanship community's feedback in the form of like, what is most important to you, or what part of this feedback do you agree with? So, and these are the results. So let me just verify how many actually, so you can see there was a serious amount of votes here. Of course, a person could vote on multiple things at the same time. That's partly why there are so many. But it gives us a pretty good idea of like, okay, what are the most, like, let's say, hot button issues for marksmanship right now? And, when doing your own feedback for Blizzard, or if indeed Blizzard is, watching this video, this would be a great place to start. So let's just recap a bit. So probably the single most important, or important to players' feedback about marksmanship is that Lone Wolf is not fun the way it is now, and that Lone Wolf and like marksmanship by its petless nature is being needlessly hampered on the utility and survivability front by basically not having a pet. Essentially, the argument is, which I agree with, that there's no reason that marksmanship, which is a fairly low utility, low survivability spec, should be hampered by the fact that it's petless. Like, it being petless is part of the flavor of the spec. That should not just make it worse than the other two specs for like survivability and utility. So how do you rework this? Well, what I suggested in the marksmanship class 3 video, not an original idea, but it's an idea that I like, that I've read a lot, is you basically have Lone Wolf stances, meaning you spec into Lone Wolf, you're petless at pretty much all times. If you want the utility of a particular pet type, either ferocity, cunning, or tenacity, well, then you have the stance you can switch, and you can impose like a cast time on this, but certainly not one that involves summoning your pet, because summoning your pet is, a long global, then you have to dismiss it. That's like 5 seconds of effort right there, spread over 2 casts. I think even a 3-second cast would be acceptable here, but it should be, honestly, it should probably be less. It should maybe like 1 global to switch your stance, if even that. And you switch your stance, and you basically just get all the benefits that you would have if you had a tenacity pet out, or cunning pet, or ferocity pet. Also, letting marksmanship hunters lust without a huge loss to their DPS, especially Mythic Plus. Because one of the worst things for a marksmanship hunter, just in terms of fun, in terms of power, is you join up in Mythic Plus, you're a marksmanship hunter, you're looking to have some fun and pump, because marksmanship in Mythic Plus, with like all the cooldowns up, it's one of the some of the most fun you can have in Mythic Plus. You should really try it. Like, okay, well, hunter, we need a lust. Okay, we have to summon the pet. Or, well, just lust before the pull and then dismiss the pet. Yeah, okay, but Lone Wolf has a ramp up time. So you lose almost 10% damage for the majority of your opening burst, which is the exciting part about MM. So for no reason, you have to nerf your juicy burst as MM by 10% just to be able to lust. That is, I mean, it's not fun gameplay. Firstly, summoning a pet just to dismiss it, it just goes completely against everything it goes against the idea of Lone Wolf, right? Because you're still summoning a pet. The whole idea is that you're not supposed to engage with the pet. And of course, if you want like the fortitude of the bear defensive from tenacity, well, you'll just have to summon a pet. Well, actually, you get that either way. So that's a bad example. If you want the leech of a ferocity pet, because hunter is lacking in self-sustain, marksmanship perhaps even more so. Well, if you want the leech, being able to actually have the leech without having the pet out is suddenly a huge, much needed burst to one of the lowest self-sustain specs in the entire game. So yeah, Lone Wolf rework stances, please. Please let marksmanship have pet utility without the pets. Consider getting rid of the talent, although that's a different argument entirely. I mean, having to invest this talent in something that you're always going to use because it's so central to the tree seems kind of pointless. Like marksmanship, especially in like AoE builds, is really starved for like talent points. So this might be a place to like think about, okay, maybe Lone Wolf shouldn't be a talent, or maybe it's not just one, but multiple talent points really should be unlocked in the AoE tree somehow. So next up is reduce the number of total nodes to unlock full power for True Shot. So from 4 to 2 to 3. So what is meant by this? Well, let's have a look here at the bottom of the marksmanship tree. We just zoom in a bit. So obviously, True Shot is here. Eagle talents True Focus, yet another talent point, extends True Shot by 3 seconds, and also basically ensures that you will always consume 2 stacks of precise shots with a single arcane shot or multi-shot. Basically a mandatory talent. It's, much more fun to play with, and it kind of enables like the tier set. So if something is so central that you'll always pick it, like, and especially it's like a fun talent, maybe it shouldn't be a talent, right? Because, okay, so that's one. Next up is calling the shot. So every 50 focus spent reduces the cooldown of True Shot by 2.5 seconds. This can amount to anywhere from like 30 to 45 seconds of cooldown reduction on True Shot. I think like maybe this could stay a talent. So you opt in, like you invest a talent point, but you get the shorter cooldown. If you don't invest a talent point, well, you get a stronger cooldown, presumably, because you're going to invest it somewhere else. But you don't, like, customizable CD timings I find to be fun when character building, especially for a particular encounter. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And then, of course, there's the Unerring Vision capstone, which is basically just, it's crit chance and damage, which is, of course, nothing synergizes better than crit chance and crit damage. Stacking up during True Shot. And we'll pretty much always be picking this as well because marksmanship is such a CD-centric spec. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, and we also have readiness, which is True Shot grants Wailing Arrow, but that's a bit of a separate thing. So yeah, reducing, like making Eagle Talent's True Focus baseline, especially because the tier set they designed basically massively incentivizes this talent. Like the tier set they've made for season 1 at least almost doesn't make sense without Eagle Talent's True Focus. So if they're gonna make something baseline, I think it should be Eagle Talent's True Focus. And recall what I said about Lone Wolf and like AoE talent points. Marksmanship cannot build a satisfying AoE build on the beta right now because there aren't enough talent points because it has to invest so much just to get basic things like this. And of course, it's AoE kit as well. All right. Next up is rework or remove Steady Focus. So right now, we're not actually forced to pick Steady Focus for the most part. And nobody likes ever... So whenever Steady Focus is optimal, you'll still have a significant... So, like modern video games, modern WoW, everyone plays the meta. And the first thing people like it or not, this is basically how people play video games these days. People want to know the best, and people generally tend to play the best, even though it doesn't matter for them. Like you've seen it, like you've seen people like ask for meta comps for like the +10 weeklies and stuff. So it's very telling that when Steady Focus is strictly optimal for marksmanship, you still have a significant cohort of the community that refuses to play it because it's just boring and lame. We just talked about how Steady Shot is just not an exciting button. They reduced its cast time a little bit with the recent changes, but that obviously does not significantly change, how lame it feels to play with Steady Focus. Also because like Steady Focus will sometimes incentivize you to cast double Steady Shot while already at the focus cap to get the buff up for your cooldowns. Like it's a relatively strong talent, it's just no one likes playing it. So yeah, completely agree with this. Rework or remove it. Put something else that's interesting there. Something. Rework or remove improved Steady Shot / crack shot. So these are also just things that like most people feel should be baseline, especially crack shot reduces the focus cost of some of our main abilities by 20. So without this talent, Arcane Shot costs more than an aim shot, even though aim shot is meant to be the big spender and Arcane Shot is meant to be the filler. So this being, especially with how staff we have for talent points, once again, like, and just shouldn't be a talent. It should just be part of the spec, in my opinion. Same with improved steady shot. Like, steady shot is a lame ability that no one likes to press. And like, but the spec has the audacity to demand that you invest a talent point just to let it give you focus. Usually only pick one of these two talents because like improved steady shot is just not all that strong because steady shot is not that strong. And generally, marksmanship hunters will take any excuse to not have to press steady shot more than absolutely necessary. So yeah, one or both of these talents just should be baseline. Having to invest talent points for effects that are so like simultaneously boring but also core to the spec otherwise functioning is just not good design in my opinion. Merge barrage and rapid fire barrage into a choice node. So this is you invest in barrage and then you invest another talent points to get rapid fire barrage. So this is once again like barrage is a cool ability, rapid fire barrage is a cool ability, but it's way too expensive right now. It's 2 talent points of investment to get rapid fire barrage, which is a lot stronger than barrage. If this was like merging these into a single node would obviously course ensure another talent point unlocked for AoE build, which is super talent staffed right now. And like overall just kind of makes sense. I mean, I feel like you're so unlikely to ever pick barrage that maybe it just shouldn't exist and it should just be rapid fire barrage. But then having the option is cool, and barrage of course is an iconic ability for better or for worse. Everyone knows about barrage ninja pulls, right? Increase cleave value of Razor Fragments. What's Razor Fragments, you guys may have forgotten? Well, it's down here. It's basically a kill shot cleave ability. The problem is that currently it is tuned in such a way that kill shot is always a much worse AoE ability than aim shot and rapid fire are, because the talent is under-tuned. And this is a problem because during true shot, we basically have all the aim shots and rapid fires that we could possibly eat. And so if you're running this talent and you pop true shot, well, it's just kind of dead. Like it's boring. Like you just ignore all these procs that you're getting of kill shot, because even with Razor Fragments turning these kill shots into cleaves, they're just not interesting to press at all. So yeah, buffing its value to make kill shot an exciting AoE button would be cool in my opinion. All right. Next up is merge multi-shot and trick shots or take one node out of a spec tree. So yeah, this is kind of the same vein as everything else. Marksmanship Hunter is pretty point staffed, especially in AoE builds, and it doesn't help that we have to invest quite a few points to reach peak AoE power. Like the baseline AoE kit is these 2 points, which is being suggested to merge into 1, which I agree with. But if you want good multi-shots as well, it's Bullet Storm. Well, if you want to alter your target cap, well, then you have to get into this. You also kind of want volley for AoE, right? And so on and so forth. Rework or remove Small Game Hunter to have less emphasis on multi-shot. They kind of did this a little bit already by reducing the damage bonus to it. Multi-shot is still a seriously hard hitter, but I think they went at least some of the way towards fixing this. So I think maybe if this poll was remade, this would rank a bit lower. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Oh, sorry, this one was what I meant to highlight. Reduce point cost of Legacy of the Windrunners and focused aim to 1 each. So what you'll notice if you're paying attention to all the reworks going on in the beta right now is that LA Shaman just recently got a rework, and it's basically all 1-pointers, which we're so jealous of. Of course, Marksmanship and Hunter specs in general had a lot of 2-pointers reduced to 1-pointers going into the war within, which is good. But we still have 2 really weak 2-pointers that are locking other strong talents behind them. So the first one of this is Legacy of the Windrunners. Like, Legacy of the Windrunners does not do a tremendous amount of damage, but it does feed into the Wailing Arrows. But it basically means that Wailing Arrow, if you want like the full power of this, firstly you have to invest these Legacy of the Windrunners 2 points just to unlock the talent to begin with. And then of course Readiness if you want to get the most out of Wailing Arrow. You need a way to proc the vision for Wailing Arrow, so Legacy of the Windrunners is existing, but it being 2 points is just way too expensive in a spec that is, as I've mentioned many times now, already very staffed for talent points. So 1 pointer for Legacy of the Windrunners, please. Same with focused aim. So each point is 2.5% aim shot and rapid fire damage. Extremely weak. But more importantly, several really powerful talents are completely hard locked behind this. Small Game Hunter, obviously, mandatory AoE talent, and Salvo as well, insanely strong AoE talent. So, you know, on top of the things we mentioned earlier with like our AoE kit being expensive, like the baseline being 2 points, well, like it's 4 points to get all these, plus like the cost of the AoE kit, if you want all the bells and whistles for marksmanship, you literally cannot have everything as marksmanship. Like, it's okay that it's expensive if you can at least actually afford it. You can actually get all the things you want, even if you have to take a single target hit to get there. Well, the thing is, right now, you cannot have your cake and eat it too as marksmanship for AoE. Rework or remove Chimera Shot. So Chimera Shot is just an arcane shot replacement that works on 2 targets. It's kind of pitiful because even on 2 targets, it almost never gets picked. Like, it's just not worth the talent point investment. You're better off just like relying on things like volley and other trick shots effect to try and get some 2 target cleave out of your character. I think this is like an unnecessary and ineffective band-aid for the very obvious problem that marksmanship has, which is just that for some reason it has no 2 target cleave. Yeah, for some reason it has no 2 target cleave. I don't know why that persists, but here we are. Because that was one of the great things about Dragonflight Season 3 and Season 4 of marksmanship was, you know, that the tier sets indirectly gave marksmanship some 2 target cleave, and that made it very fun on certain fights. Bring back a version of vulnerability / mark shot sidewinders. Okay, one could make a whole video about this one, so I'm not going to spend that much time, but obviously to those uninitiated, this is a callback to how marksmanship worked before its rework of Battle for Azeroth back in Legion. There was this vulnerability mechanic. It was a window in which your aim shots would do reduced damage. It was applied by mark shot. You got mark shot procs from your auto shots, sidewinders as well. I mean, I would need to think a lot more about how this would fit into the current vision of marksmanship. I think what this really is saying is like bring back Legion MM, which is a valid thing because I really like Legion MM as well, but it's probably not what's going to happen in the coming weeks. Rework multi-shot to proc trick shots of 1 target. This is just the 2 target thing I mentioned. Like 1 target, 2 target, not a huge difference either way, but yeah, people want 2 target cleave out of marksmanship. Redesign unsynergistic spec features. So precise shot / true shot. So what does this mean? Well, during true shot, the cooldowns of aim shot and rapid fire are substantially reduced. This means that we spend most of our time in true shot casting aim shots and rapid fires. The problem is, these aim shots are constantly generating precise shot stacks, which our tier set is built upon, by the way. And also Eagle Talon's True Focus is built upon, by the way. But aim shots are still, especially now after they buffed it by 10%. Actually, they buffed the Arcane Shot 10% as well, never mind. But yeah, aim shot is more damage per focus and just a higher value cast than Arcane Shot ever is, even with precise shots. Meaning if you can cast aim shot instead of a precise shot's arcane, well, then you're going to do so. Which basically means that, you know, this mechanic, precise shots, upon which they build the entire tier set and several other mechanics, is just kind of dead during your true shot, which is like the most exciting. Like, true shot is, I think, if there's one thing everyone likes about marksmanship and playing it, it's how true shot feels. But the fact that during true shot you have all these other mechanics happening that you have to ignore, not just precise shots, but also you know, razor fragments, as we talked about earlier, it just feels kind of bad. Aim shot charge system, other talents that conflict with each other. So yeah, so another one of those would be razor fragments and so on. Bring back a version of Dragonflight Tier 3 set. So this, or Season 3 tier set, I think what people really like, so a version of that, what does that mean? What do people want of that? What made the Dragonflight Season 3 tier set great was that you did not have to weave a multi-shot in between every single aim shot and rapid fire during true shot. And that basically meant you could execute your single target rotation on AoE and you would reap all the benefits. And this felt fun, it felt rewarding, like it emphasized true shot as being one of the stronger and more fun cooldowns of the game. Overall, a good thing. There are many ways to do this. Re-implementing the Dragonflight Season 3, Season 4 tier set in the form of a talent or something else is one way of doing it, but it is certainly not the only way of doing it. But yes, please, something like that. These are similar suggestions. Merge volley and kill zone, or rework or remove kill zone. So once again, this kind of bloaty talent. There's kind of talent bloat for marksmanship going on, because of course If you want all the other AoE bells and whistles, well, you're not going to be able to afford kill zone, and that's what feels bad about it. I think people broadly like volley. I don't think people said remove volley. Yeah, so it's mostly kill zone. Kill zone is basically just a node below volley that makes everything inside volley take 8% increased damage. It's quite boring. It's not tremendously powerful. It adds to the talent bloat that marksmanship suffers from. It probably should just be part of volley inherently. Now we're getting to the lower end of the votes, but remove passive percent gain nodes. So these are just boring talents like Night Hunter, focused aim altogether. Especially, I mean, like every spec is going to have some of these passive nodes, but especially focused aim being a 2-pointer just feels like a huge kick in the nuts, to be honest. Rework or remove careful aim into execute instead of 70% HP. So of course, careful aim is 50% bonus damage to aim shot on targets above 70% HP. Above 70% HP is like generally the least useful part of any like rating counter or mythic plus and so on, whereas execute is usually disproportionately powerful. Marksmanship has several other execute mechanics going on in bullseye and mainly bullseye, but of course also a kill shot unlocking a lower target count or lower health percentages. Careful aim just seems to go against that. I think like it would be cool if they doubled down on marksmanship's execute niche and just turned careful aim into a super execute thing as well, and tuned accordingly, of course. Of course, if careful aim was sub 20%, well then it would probably be numerically a bit weaker, but it would backload more of marksmanship's damage and emphasize that niche of execute damage, which I think most people would prefer, provided the tuning is there, obviously. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. Not that I necessarily disagree with the remaining ones, but you can see there's a huge dip in the amount of votes for the last ones, so I think I'm happy to move on. Let me know what you think about all these in the comments below. I'll also put a link to the poll so that you can add your own votes. Like, it would be great if maybe, you know, if Blizzard is like, oh, well, what are we going to do about marksmanship? You know, people are complaining a lot about marksmanship, because they are. What are we going to do about it? Well, like, we've gotten some really, really good data here, guys, thanks to Creasem. Sorry if I'm, like, butchering your name, by the way. This would be a great place to start. Like, start at the top, see if you guys at Blizzard can maybe work something with this. If not, skip on to the next one. Like, if you just implement a few of these, you're gonna make a lot of people very happy and excited about marksmanship. I'm just saying. All right. Final thing I wanted to go over in this video. I've expected this video to be like 15 minutes long. Here we are, 36 minutes in. Okay. Next up is basically a lot of bug fixes. So mainly concerning pack leader for Beast Mastery. There were a lot of bugs that basically made this hero talent tree not work at all. It was still pretty powerful, but a lot of its core mechanics were just not working. A few of them are still not working, but they fixed quite a few of them, so they're making some progress here. I'll also link the spreadsheet in the description below. Yeah, overall just a good spreadsheet, especially if you're like trying to min-max on the beta, looking into what's going on. Like bookmark the sheet, have a look at what's broken, what's not broken, and you know, gets updated like pretty much instant a new build hits, like Tarlo, Leak, and Co. They're basically online retesting everything they've tested before and updating the sheet accordingly. So, you know, great job to those guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you like this content and want to support what I do here on the channel, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Azortharion, where you can get personal Hunter PvE coaching from me. You get access to my Hunter UI, many other perks, including my Hunter Compendium, which has the best builds and like tips and tricks for every dungeon, every raid boss in the War Within. And yeah, peace out. Bye-bye.